and welcome to PerformanceFunnel.com. I am Kevin Ankrom, and this is the Performance Report. Today we'll be talking about the Performance Funnel tool and how we're trying to connect data and integrate this into your coaching and your coaching education. And so today I had the opportunity to sit down with Ralph Mouchbahani, who is a key person in the IAAF who writes the coaching education manuals for sprints and jumps. He also has a consulting service called Athletic Solutions. And we had a very good conversation today about how the performance funnel was developed, how we are working collectively together and have been doing for years to integrate data, which is kind of a hot topic out there, into coaching, and how to make sense of it and apply that data to make better educated and informed decisions about what you're doing with your coaching. So let's step right in, have a look at that conversation with Coach Ralph Mouchbahani as it happened. We're going to talk a little bit today about the performance funnels and the history and kind of how they're developed. Talk a little bit about how we're applying that knowledge. We talk a lot about, you and I together, about how we're applying that knowledge to coaching and how important that is. We'll kind of go through a little performance funnel and see how we can take some data and how important that is, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So basically kind of the history, Ralph. I know independently you and I for some time were working across the world in different parts, and we've got to catch up, and I was kind of doing some data work and you were kind of doing some data work, and we kind of shared our data. But basically at some point in time, as we started to share that data together, we kind of came up with a lot of great ideas that we were doing the same thing. But tell me a little bit from your side, Ralph, how you were using data and how that was kind of developing as a coach through your career.
Yeah, well, it all starts depending on what positions you are in, depending on what decisions you have to take. And you often then start thinking and saying, well, how can I justify whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever decisions I take? And you then come up, when you have a bit of a scientific background, you have a bit of a sort of experience as well, and you experience as well how difficult it is very often to justify what you're doing or what you're saying and or decisions you're taking. You then start sort of figuring out to get some data, some sort of objective data, which are not subjectively tainted in a way. And this is basically how it comes up. And remember, we're both in Southeast Asia or in Asia, both of us, and this is how it came up, talking, as you said, and we realized that we were basically working on a similar thing. You being more the computer freak, and me being the guy on the ground, trying sort of to get some sense into what I'm doing, and as I said, to justify. And this is how it came up, and then you start realizing that, yes, there is some statistics. You start realizing there are some figures. You start realizing that you are getting things and bits and ends together to give you a sort of a backup, as I said, of what you're doing. And that is in very brief and very short the history, right, basically, of that whole performance funnel.
Right. And I think on my side, along those same lines, and what became evidently kind of important to me is that I was challenged by governments as I was going in and saying, hey, listen, this is my experience. This is what I believe I know about an athlete. Can you fund them? That no longer started to work. And really how I started to grab data and how I started to make it apply to athletes was to, again, to justify the performance and show that, listen, not only my experience is there, but also the data here that I have is helping me to make better informed decisions. So I think that's really how we kind of came together and started to really develop the data that we both had together into kind of the performance funnel as a tool. And really, I think at the end of the day, I think as we continue to talk, it's how we're applying that data, to our coaching. So from your perspective, how do you apply the data that you've got, like say in your coaching education, or when you're helping an athlete or a coach if you're sitting with them?
Well, as I said, it's sort of like twofold, or it's on two avenues. The one is that as I said, you have to figure out. You want to know whether when you card somebody, when you take somebody into a team, when you plan training for someone, you need a reference. Where are you heading to? Or basically put it backwards, you want to get to a certain level, and now you start figuring out, well, how do I get there? And this is basically what the training does then, or what the performance does. It gives you sort of a guidance. It funnels, as the word says, your whole thoughts and your whole training into a certain direction, where then you've got sort of a, like left and right limitations. You've got a pathway to follow and to know, okay, if this is what I want, or this is where we're heading to, well, where are the sort of milestones within that planning? And that is where it helps you, because remember, we work as coaches, we work somehow a lot of an assumption. We believe, we think, but we have difficulties in sort of justifying and sort of putting sort of a bit of a reference, or of sense into what we do. As you said, whether you want to justify it to a government, or whether you're with an athlete or coaches, or you're a national team and you're carding people, why do you take that athlete and you do not take the other one? So it's the same again. So it's in planning the same. If you say, I want to go a sub 10, I want to go sub 1050 if the guy is still a junior, well, where do you get that figure from? I mean, why 1030?
It's in your head.
Why not 1020? Why not immediately sub 10? I mean, you see what I mean? That's what I said. So we work a lot of an assumption, and that's where the performance funnel sort of gives you a bit of a guidance within your thoughts, and say, okay, how can we reach that step by step without overdoing it, and without maybe loading, or under sort of stressing. No, I'm looking out for the right term. Is sort of to find basically how much, or what gives you that confidence and that security that you're on the right track, that you're on the right pathway, when you put up your loads and you put up your training and you put up your references and so on and so forth.
I mean, the information or the thought pattern is coming from somewhere. If it's coming from your head, it's still data. It's just not on a piece of paper. And then what we're trying to do here, I think, for the most part, is to get some kind of guide or tool that's helping you justify what you're doing. And Ralph, let's take a quick look at a performance funnel. And we've got an athlete here that is, let's just say from China, and let's just say is a world-class athlete who has run 991. And the performance, go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, no, what I was, without not wanting to interrupt you, but you see what, for example, you've got here basically a summary of all the thoughts. As I was saying, or as you were saying as well, is we first have to know that athlete, how long is that career possibly going to last? So with the average already of a sort of the age average of a big sample of athletes, all right, somewhere around the age of whatever it is, 29 years, 27 years, 30 years, this is where basically is the peak of most of the athletes in that event. So that gives you a first reference, right? So if you go then back and you say, okay, my athlete is 19, 20, 21, 23, you would know, well, how much time have you got left?
Right.
You see, so that's already the first reference. Then comes the performance. If you look at the performance, you see, okay, in that event, how much development can I expect? Is it going to be 10%, 20%, 2%? That's a huge difference. And these are already 2-3 references which sort of limit a little bit your wild thoughts and whatever you are planning into something which becomes now practical, which becomes a sort of a realistic vision of where you could go and where you're heading to.
And we're seeing a lot of that in the USA, as I've written in a couple of reports prior to this video, is that a lot of the USA athletes are having to come into the universities and having to peak early. And the reason for that is obviously you're getting a scholarship, they want you to perform. And at the end of the day, what you're seeing is a lot of athletes who have a very high use of that total percentage of performance used up early. And what we're seeing is that through those development years of 19 to 23, the percentage is not that great because it's already used up. Some come in with maybe 4%, 5% already used up. And we're looking at maybe under 20, maybe 2 or 3%, under 23, another 2% for a total of under 23 of around 4 or 5%. And getting that last 1 or 2% as a senior, if you're coming into that collegiate years or halfway through your collegiate years and your percentage is already used up, where do you go from there?
Exactly, Kevin. You see, and that is exactly what we're talking about. You see, we can see very clearly that basically beyond the age of 23, there's not much to develop anymore. So basically, how did that athlete come to that performance up to that age? If he has used up most of it, can you do a step backward? Can you fix, for example, mechanics? Or what have you left to do in training? Because if then certain things are not in place, well, that 0.5% won't give you much anymore. That means whatever you have done wrong, to put it a bit sort of blunt and maybe very direct, might not be able to be fixed again. And then well, he could have, but he won't probably. Or vice versa. Did he reach that performance basically with a lot of still development to go? Well,
right.
Then you know that this is a realistic goal or a realistic performance to target.
But there's the conundrum, Ralph. You've got internationally where someone's looking at a world championship, Olympic games, not that they wouldn't in the USA, but they're more, I'd say, targeted or have a targeted focus of, before the 21, 22 and under, you have to be at your peak, your very, very, very best, because that's what you're getting paid to do through your university. That's your trade-off. So what's the conundrum then, Ralph?
How do you get that performance? How do you get that performance? If you have used in training basically all the assets, all the jokers, well, you don't have jokers anymore in your hand. So what are you going to do in training? How are you going to sort of unlock that last whatever, be it 2%, 1%, doesn't matter. But where do you lock them? How do you unlock them? You see what I mean? Because you've used obviously all the jokers and you've got not much left. Whereas if you've got still some jokers in your hands, well, then right, he's at that performance and this is what I've got left to, well, these are the tools I've got left where I can then fix basically that last 1 or 2% or 0.5%, whatever is remaining, to get to where we want to get to.
So I guess one important question is, and we'll kind of wrap this up, and then if I've got an athlete under age 18, and then I got an athlete that's over 18, and I've got percentages left over, or what are my key things that I could be working on if I'm now looking at the data, say under 18, and then what are the key things that I could be working as a coach over the age of 18 if I can now see the data and see what's helping me through the performance funnel?
I think we can break it down in 3 main big sort of areas. The one is the skill or the teaching the skill. So the skill acquisition for the athlete. The second big area is developing these. And the third one is perfecting. So what you are left with when you're beyond 33 is perfecting. So what are you perfecting? Is you're perfecting whatever you came in with and whatever you have developed or whatever you have learned. You see what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So, and that is where the interesting part comes. And this is why I think when you've got these data, you might see as well, when you perfect things, that means you've got to have basics in place. You have to have basics developed. But if you didn't do that and you just, as I said, pushed that performance right from the beginning, well, it might be that despite it, you still got 0.5%, you won't even be able to unlock that one.
Right. Well, listen, Ralph, thanks for coming on today. And we'll continue to do some videos around the performance funnels and how it's applying to coaching, and how we can continue to look at how we apply data to your coaching knowledge. For the Performance Report, I'm Kevin Ankrom.